Okay. She's there? Okay, good, thank you. Okay, thank you. We'll call this meeting to order. It's 4 o'clock. I'd like to welcome everybody back. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Христос Рождая for you Ukrainians out there. And we'll get going. So I'll call the meeting to order. I need somebody to approve the agenda. Councillor Miller.
I'll approve it.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Oh, discussion. Mayor Dion. Well, that's too bad. Sorry.
I'm just going to get you out. And I'll get you back in. Was it working? You just pressed it. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it's working now. Oh, no, it's not. But nobody's home. Okay, so but what's all this happening here? There's a whole bunch of... But why do I have that? Oh, okay. Okay, Mayor Dion. Push your button. Should work. There you go.
Okay,
Mayor
great.
Dion.
No, I was going to move the agenda. That's how I found out it didn't went on. But I think somebody
Okay,
did.
I think Councilor Miller did.
Okay.
Okay, all of that for that. Okay, approval of the agenda, ready to vote. I hit recall, right? No, I hit open. Okay, it should be open. Councilor Landexep? Councilor Landexep, are you there? We only have 7 votes. We have 8, and now Councilor Landexep. Councilor Landexep?
She doesn't have any audio. Give me a second. System's just falling apart right
The city clerk is fixing your audio, Councilor Landexep. I wonder if she can hear us. Can she hear us? Oh.
You want to tell her that I'm just I'm leaving the meeting and I'll go back in.
It's going to be a close vote.
No, it's not, but
Might as well fix it unless you can't talk.
yeah, but we need to also hear her, and she needs to hear us. I don't think she's hearing us. I know, but she can't hear us. So, yeah.
Can you call Kevin? Here.
Councilor Lennox Epp, can you hear us? Just give me a thumbs up if you could hear us. No, she can't. I think Terry is texting or calling. Oh, shit, I forgot.
No, I think so. Okay, can you answer her?
Councilor Lennox Epp, can you hear us?
She's just texting.
Oh, yeah, she can't hear.
Okay, you wanna ask her
Ask her
if she can hear?
Councillor Lennox Epp, can you hear us? No.
One more time.
Councillor Lennox Epp, can you hear us? She can.
Yes, I can now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have Councillor Miller move the agenda as presented, and we're just voting now. So how do you vote?
On the agenda? Yes.
Okay,
All that.
it's closed, accepted, passes 9-0. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge that we're on Treaty 6 land and the home of the Dakota and Métis people. We'll move on to declaration of conflict of interest. If there's anything on the agenda that you need to report, please do so with the city clerk. Adoption of the minutes. Mayor, whoops, I got to go back here. Mayor Dion,
I move the adoption of the minutes.
thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Adoption ready to vote. It's open. Councillor Lennox Epp?
Yes.
Thank you. Close, accept. It's unanimous 9-0. Delegations. Our first delegation is implications of changes to the liquor legislation, verbal presentation from Brian Howell, Riverbank Development Corporation. Brian, if you want to go to the podium, I have to add you, so I hit, which one? The black. Oh, the black area, that's right. Speakers, add, podium. Grant the floor. Okay, you have the floor, Mr. Howell.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the invitation to speak regarding Cassie and the implications of the changing scene in liquor licensing in Saskatchewan. We've taken the opportunity to present Council and the Board of Police Commissioners with a copy of Harold Johnson's book, Firewater. And I think that this book, which is written by a person from northern Saskatchewan, an Indigenous person who's a lawyer, will help you to better understand perhaps some of the social issues that people in our community face, and also help to understand why groups like ourselves are calling for a more nuanced approach to regulations around alcohol consumption in Saskatchewan. First of all, Cassie, we're a group of individuals and organizations who are interested in reducing the impact of alcohol consumption in our community. We've been meeting for a number of years and have been involved with lots of educational initiatives and community efforts to really move away from to really reduce drinking and to help people to find alternative ways to enjoy themselves. I should emphasize that we're not trying to do away with drinking, but rather through education and promotion to find better ways to manage it and to reduce the impacts of alcohol within our community. Basically, I think the thing with alcohol that one must consider is that more access leads to more problems. I was reading about gun use across the world and deaths from guns. Basically, countries that have more guns, like the United States, have more gun violence and more gun death. It's the same with alcohol. It's the same with drugs. The more access you have, the easier it is to get, then the more that you're going to find people are moving to use them, and the more problems that you're going to run into. So we have a number of concerns about some of the recent developments in the world of alcohol. Of course, we're all aware of some of the problems, that we're facing in our community around increasing homelessness and increasing poverty, and much of this definitely can be linked to the use of alcohol, and strategies that will reduce the use of alcohol will generally also have an impact on these other social issues. Our first big one is the need to reduce liquor store hours within our community. So you can buy alcohol in Prince Albert. I'm not going to identify any stores or businesses by name, but from 8 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the morning. So 3 till 8, 5 hours, it's not available. And that's way too much. When we were dealing with homelessness last summer, we were coming by River Street, and we would find people at 8 o'clock in the morning sitting outside a certain business waiting for it to open so that they could purchase alcohol. And that really is an issue. We think that by restricting the hours and by making it a little bit more reasonable, say 11 o'clock till 10 o'clock at night or whatever, that people would still have the opportunity to purchase and enjoy the alcohol that they seem to need, while at the same time not really producing some of the problems that we see. We've heard that the police are actually finding impaired people outside of some of these places that are open very, very early in the morning, impaired drivers, and they're putting all of us at risk. So that would certainly be one positive move. And we do recognize that some of these things are covered by provincial legislation, and that the city might not have the ability to just do this. But at the same time, I think we can lobby the province and try and work on this sort of alcohol-dependent taxation culture that seems to be rising. So the second thing we notice is that there's an increasing number of liquor stores throughout the city. One story I hear is of a particular shopping area in the eastern part of the city where people can panhandle and then walk into a liquor store and buy a can of beer. So it just seems to be getting easier and easier to get this alcohol, whereas if you have to buy 6 or 12, you might need to raise $20 or $30, but the single can and the sort of number of stores that are out there do make it a lot easier for people to acquire alcohol. And that's a lot of the drinking that you see that, leads to police calls and that sort of thing. And then finally, we're concerned about the home delivery of alcohol. Home delivery has some positive aspects for sure. If someone's drinking and they want to keep drinking and they're not going to drive because they can get home delivery, that would be, in my view, a positive thing. I think, keeping people off the roads is very important. But the other thing I would stress is that, if it's going to become available at all hours, then we're going to be back into the same sort of problems that we've had before. In closing, I would say I was on a panel discussion or a discussion with someone from one of the major liquor retailers in Prince Albert, and they were talking about people's, quote, liquor experience. Well, I would like some of these guys to follow around our police officers at 3 o'clock in the morning when they're dealing with some liquor experiences, that involve children being taken into care, that involve violence, that sometimes involve death. We can do much better. We can be a society that provides people with the freedom to enjoy themselves, while at the same time providing a degree of legislation that reduces the harm and the social impacts of alcohol. Thank you, and if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Brian. Questions, Mayor Dion?
Thank you for your presentation, and thank your organization for the work they do in our community. You're right, as a city, we are restricted. But I will share some things that we have done in our city that you may not be aware of. There can only be 10 liquor licenses, and they're all out in our city. There can be no more new liquor board stores built. We restricted it to 10 and 3 cannabis stores. But the other thing I think it's important for you to announce in your speeches when you talk, you're absolutely right. You can buy alcohol from 8 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the morning. So you dive 5 hours. But the important fact you should add, that's 365 days a year. I used to remember our police service used to get a break because you couldn't sell alcohol on Sundays or Christmas Day. Now it's 365 days we deal with the side effects of alcohol because there's no relief. I also read an article about alcohol, and the problem with governments and alcohol is governments are addicted to the revenue. They see it as a big revenue source, a growing revenue source, so they continue to go that route. The other thing that surprises me about the government is I can go into a liquor board store and buy 20 Mickeys and not be asked what I'm going to use them for. Well, I know what, if I'm buying 20 Mickeys, I know what I'm going to do with them. I'm going to resell them. That's why I'm buying Mickeys, otherwise I'd buy a 66. So there's quite a bit of things, that goes on. So that's why I want to thank your organization, because it is a struggle. But I'll certainly bring forth your concerns. Because how they're getting around the liquor license issues in some cities, because we're not the only one, is you can now have liquor delivered with your food from restaurants. Mm-hmm. And I warned people, when the government brought that in, they first brought it in as COVID. That was their underbelly to COVID, to help the businesses to survive through COVID. I told my friends right after that will never disappear. I think it disappeared for 2 to 3 weeks, and then they made it law. And so it is frustrating, especially as you know, in your business, you see the side effects of alcohol every day. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the majority of our arrests at the police commission is alcohol related and intoxicated people. It's a problem with our homeless. Addictions is a big problem. And so you have my 100% support, and I will again lobby the government to relook at their liquor and bring in some rules. I flew to the north to fly-in communities and ask them, how can we help you? And their number one issue in the north is bootleggers. Well, if I can go in and buy 20 Mickeys, how do you stop it? Well, you stop it at the point of sale. Yet, if I want to have a Christmas party and have 20 people over and I want to buy 10 bottles, I have to get a permit. But if I don't tell them I'm having a Christmas party, I can buy as many bottles as I want. So it's certainly all over the board, and you certainly have my 100% support in the alcohol strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. We have Councillor Head.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And thank you, Brian and Karen, for being here today and presenting on behalf of your committee. And I want to thank you for the gift that you left us on our desk and for the great work you guys do. I tend to agree, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for clarifying a lot of those items as well. And I think you have our support within this room. I too get multiple calls from bus drivers of our school saying, why are people lined up in our liquor stores? And I don't care, I'm going to name it. It's the one downtown here that is open in those early hours. 5 hours is all we are closing for. And it's a huge detriment to our population, I would say, and to our community. And so I would like to see those hours adjusted. And going back to how it was before, Sundays closed, and and looking at adjusting the hours, maybe not to open till 3 a.m., but looking at our cannabis shops as well and aligning up with some of those hours could be a way to. So whatever changes we make, I think. Having a letter or even some bylaw changes to restrict some of the hours of operations. And I would like to see this store moved out of this general area downtown here, because I think it is a big hindrance to our population downtown and to our individuals who are suffering from addictions because of the accessibility. So, I agree, and you have my full support, and anything I can do to help, I will. And so thank you for your presentation, and I look forward to those discussions with our ministry.
Thank you, Councillor Head. Councillor Zurikowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian, thank you for being here. Thanks for what you do, and thanks for your presentation. And of course, I know you have some quality people on your board too, and that certainly helps with what needs to get done in our community, of where the steps we need to get to. We've certainly talked about this issue for a number of years, and you being here tonight talking about this issue on behalf of that organization helps propel that conversation forward. I have a question for you, if I may. I know you've done a lot of homework on this. So what specifically is your ask of us at this point?
So whatever can be done to regulate hours would be part of it, a big part. I guess the number of stores seems to be under control. And I think with the regulation of hours would come the monitoring of the food, you know, the ability to deliver alcohol with food. I just think in general, as a community, you know, we need to look at the things that are causing us problems and come together to try to find solutions for them. And alcohol certainly is, per capita wise, a bigger issue here than it is in other communities. And so, you know, this collaborative approach and willingness to listen, I think, and willingness to lobby the province and to advocate, you know, for our community.
Seems to be one of the root causes that we always often find ourselves at after, as you say, consultations and conversations going on. Do you believe also that a full-time liquor inspector, that there'd be a need for that in Prince Albert? Do you think the demand is there?
Well, I think inspection is a big part of it. I know they used to come to, they were involved with Cassie when we first started, and there was some moves to enhance, you know, the enforcement, and I'm not exactly sure where that's at now, but yeah, basically if bars are, you know, selling to people who are intoxicated or whatever, and there is enforcement, then that's going to minimize that.
Right. Or drive.
And that really is the biggest danger, that somebody just gets too drunk and gets behind the wheel of a car and, you know, death follows. So enforcement is important.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. So if I may, Mr. Chairman, question to administration, if I may?
Sure.
I don't want to interrupt anybody else if they have a question for Brian.
Go ahead.
So to administration, is it within the scope of the city's authority to restrict alcohol sales insofar as hours, restricting hours?
And that's to the Director of Planning. Go ahead, Craig.
Yes, I can stay seated. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councilor Zurikowski. As of right now, and we can certainly provide you with more detail, we have prepared a memo for council, a previous council, that we can provide you as an update. Myself and the City Solicitor's Office prepared it at that time. But in short, at the current moment, no, it is not within our authority to adjust liquor hours similar to that of cannabis stores, for example. But I will forward you that memo with additional information.
Thank you.
Thank you. You can turn your mic off. Any other questions? Thank you, Brian, for your presentation and for the three key concerns that you raised, which is what I got out of it: reducing liquor store hours, increasing the number of liquor stores, and the home delivery of alcohol. Those are your three main concerns that you brought forward to us to pressure the government. We have a recommendation, Mayor Dion.
I would like to change the recommendation that we refer this matter to the mayor's office for further comment.
Thank you. Okay, any comments or questions, discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. How do I turn the podium off? Just hit podium? And then stop. Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is liquor legislation, ready to vote. Okay, the vote is open. Councillor Annex-Zepp.
Yes.
Thank you. Vote is closed, and accept. It's unanimous 9-0 on the recommendation. Thank you. We move to the consent agenda. Which items do we want pulled, if any?
6-1 and 6-6, please.
6-1 and 6-6? 6-1, 6-6. Anybody, any others?
Tara, I'll accept.
Sure.
6.7, please.
6.7. Okay. Is that it? Okay, so I need a motion to approve the rest. Councillor Kilmer had her light on.
I'll move that.
Thank you. We'll move to the motion. And that's consent, right? Yeah. Oops. Whoops. What did I do? Okay, thank you. Well, it says liquor legislation though. Oh, that's previous. Oh, jeez. Okay. The vote is open for approving the consent agenda, the remaining items. Councillor Landis-Zepp?
Yes.
Thank you. Everybody's in, and it passes 9-0. Thank you. Go back here. And Councillor Zurkowski for 6.1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move the motion up on the board that correspondence be received as information as followed. But I'd also like add on to that, we forwarded to the Prince Albert Library Board, because that's who is the legislative body, that this correspondence, and I think it's important that the board is, I'm sure they're aware, but I think it's important that they're involved in that conversation, they're aware of some of the issues and the feedback that the public is sending in, so they can put it on their next agenda and have a conversation, and at least be informed.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion, Councillor Kilmer?
My question is to the city manager. I'm just wondering, in Saskatoon, the Saskatoon Public Library makes the decisions themselves, and we're different than how we are operating here, and I'm just wondering why.
Do I have to turn his mic on, or he turns?
No,
it? Okay, I can turn it on automatically.
the right one.
Okay, so I personally don't have information about the way that the Saskatoon City runs their library. I know how ours works, but theirs is a standalone. I do know that they're looking at, they purchased property in downtown Saskatoon, a large block of property. And so they're putting well, not fundraising, but they're putting money in a pot so they can build a new library. So I can't say that I know exactly if that library operates the same way as the city of Prince Albert does. I can get that information for a future council meeting if you like.
Okay, that would be,
And we can bring back something, a bit of a report on that, so you would have that information before you.
would they be, there's a public library, not a law, but governed,
I think it's the Libraries Act.
the Libraries Act, thank you.
Right.
And are they governed by that as well as the same one that we are?
Yes, I believe that is correct.
Okay,
But what we'll do is bring an intensive report to City Council, so you would have all that information before we move forward for a future library for the city of Prince Albert.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Kilmer. Thank you, City Manager. Councillor Zurkowski.
Well, I can answer that. I don't think if we need a report. It's in the Libraries Act. And the answer is it runs the same way. And back in the fall, and again, earlier in the spring, the Prince Albert Public Library Board made the motion that was passed by the board that the library itself would follow the same guidelines decided upon by the city of Prince Albert that would how they are running their facilities when it comes to COVID. So the answer is that it runs the same as Saskatoon and Regina, as outlined in the authorities in the Libraries Act.
Thank you. And yeah, I agree. I'm glad the library board did that. I applaud them for doing that. I also think that nobody is being denied access to any of our facilities. We have to enter, it's showing proof of vaccination or a negative test. So nobody's being denied access. The library has gone, in talking with the director, is it? Oh, no, chief librarian. Anyways, in talking with them, I mean, they also do roadside pickup. So anybody that needs any access to the library, within an hour, the books are ready for them for roadside pickup. And I just don't get this idea of people being denied access to the library. I think the library has done a great job in dealing with COVID in very difficult times, keeping people and patrons safe. Mayor Dion.
Well, and I just like to remind people that we're not the only library that operates in the area. So when you phone my office and you live in the RM and you're concerned that you can't get into our library, that's true, and I kudos again to the library board for doing that. But you have access to Wapiti. Wapiti is who you pay your money to, and Wapiti is where you should be going. And so they have access to libraries. It's just for some reason they've chosen to go to our library. But at the end of the day, the majority of the people that have claimed to my office, I have to explain to them that they have a library called Wapiti, and that's who they pay their money to. They don't pay their money to the Prince Albert Library. And so if you have an issue or you need books, call Wapiti, and they'll arrange for you to get them as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zurkowski?
Yeah, well, I think it's a great conversation. The mayor's completely right that there is no available library services to our neighbors in the RMs. And we certainly welcome them to the JMCPL, the public library branch here in the city. But and they do pay a levy to Wapiti. For what service, I'm not sure, because they don't get any service from Wapiti. But Wapiti Library is not open to the public, and that's why they come to the Prince Albert Public Library, the J.M. Colliner branch.
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, and I do believe there's online services for the library as well they can access.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion?
Tara Lennox-Epp, please.
Go ahead, Councillor Lennox-Epp.
Thank you. I'm in favor of this motion. Couple of things to add. One is that I have received correspondence from members in the community who advise me that they want to see this restriction continued at this time while it's needed, because they themselves then are able to be patrons of the library in a more safe manner with the restrictions in at this time. And I also want to say I respect and appreciate those who did write these letters to City Council on the issue, and I respect that we're hearing concerns here. However, we have to balance that with what we're dealing with COVID-19. It was City Council that implemented these restrictions at the library. It's not through the library board. City Council implemented these restrictions when we implemented the restrictions at other city facilities. And we did that as a direct result of the request from the Prince Albert Medical Health Officer, Dr. Chokani. And I would state that we did not do it, implement restrictions lightly, but instead, I mean, we as City Council did not come looking for, seeking out, trying to make these type of changes. It was Dr. Chokani came to us and made a request that the City of Prince Albert implement additional restrictions over and above the provincial governments in order to have safety here in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lennox-Epp. I think just one point, I don't think we made those rules for the library. I think it's the library board that made those rules and implemented those restrictions. I think that's how it went. I don't think we as city council made those rules for the library. I could be wrong on that, but I'm sure it was passed at the library board meeting that they would implement the restrictions that are in place right now. I don't think it was us.
Mr. Chair, perhaps we could just confirm that issue with the administration.
Who from administration can confirm that for us? The Director of Community Services, Jody Boulay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Councillor Lennox Zepp's inquiries, I think the way Councillor Zurakowski summarized it, the board, the library board, made a decision and passed that at their board meeting to follow what the city was doing, so there was some consistency. So that decision happened at the board meeting, but it was important for that consistency to exist.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Thanks.
Mayor Dion. Councillor Kilmer.
I'm just looking currently at the Library Act, and it is under bylaws 68, 1 and 2.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion in front of us right now. Yes, we do. We'll vote on that. So now I have to go, that's 6.1, right? I need to vote. The vote is open. Councillor Lennox Zepp?
Yes.
Thank you. Vote is closed and accept. It passes 9-0 unanimous decision. 6.6, Councillor Zurakowski.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I was at the last PA Public Library Board meeting where there was quite a robust discussion about this, and I can certainly understand, and I'm sympathetic to how, one day you're the board chair of this body, and the next day you get a letter from the city saying you're off the board. So I can appreciate everyone's patience on this and the opportunity to get this right, so to speak. So whether really if it's a procedural issue, I mean, apparently the city has one deadline and the library had another. So I don't think this needs to be any bigger issue than it is. And I guess I think council support in placing a committed volunteer who has worked hard over the last few years at the library board to lead us through a strat planning session and for the next 5 years that she's been serving on, I think is really important. It's hard to find committed people who are in it for the right reasons. And I think you just need to move on and ask Tracy to, once again, serve on the Prince Albert Public Library Board. So that's the motion I'm going to make. That City Council appoint Tracy Smith to the Prince Albert Public Library Board.
Okay, thank you. Wait till the clerk gets it on the board. Okay, thank you. Mayor Dion.
In principle, I support his point. His motion won't help the situation. And that's why I supported it going back to the city clerk for review. What happened, just to give you history, the library board used to be 9, and then they made a presentation to council to drop it to 7, and we passed that under bylaw. So we have to reverse that because we have 7 members now, so the board is full. So the library board has to make a motion back to expand back to 9, and then send it back to council, and then at council, and I think that can happen pretty quickly, and then council can make the appropriate changes. And then it'll be referred back to the clerk in my office for the 2 appointments. And the reason I support it is when we did the appointment last time, this is one of the few boards that we really wanted to look more at diversity that represents our community. So with the ninth member that be able to verse, it'll make that board more diverse. So that's the reason I support it. But council cannot appoint someone to a board that's full. So I would ask that the mover just amend it to refer it to, back to the city clerk to follow the process, and we'll communicate as quickly as we can to the library board to have a new meeting to request it to go to 9, and then bring the appropriate paperwork, which I think can be done shortly through council.
Thank you. We have Councillor Edwards and then Councillor Zurkowski.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just to be clear, I think, Mayor, you had said that we voted on making it 7? Is that they brought the request to council? I don't recall that discussion. So when did we vote on that?
City Clerk, do we have a motion?
I believe the request was when we had a vacancy on the library previously. May 2021 is sounding a little bit familiar. I'd have to look back, but at that time, there was a request to lower the amount of members on the board. And so we did lower it to 7. And that was a motion by council because it has to be a motion by council.
Yeah.
Because council makes the decision of how many members actually sit on the Prince Albert Public Library Board.
So did that motion come from the library board, though?
It was a request that there was a vacancy. There was a vacancy that existed, and in the Library Act, it actually indicates that as soon as a vacancy exists, City Council must reappoint somebody immediately at their next meeting. At that time, there was discussions with the chairman of the Prince Albert Library Board, and they indicated that they would like to have it reduced to 7 members. And at that time, it was in my report that they requested that, and that was what council approved.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards, do you have further questions or discussion?
Not at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Zurkowski.
So I appreciate the comments from the mayor and the mayor's support on this. That's sure. So I just want to clarify, in the Libraries Act, there is a range, there's a numerical range of numbers that the library board can sit at. So specifically to the city clerk, what is that range?
City Clerk?
So the act indicates that there can be
6 to 9.
six to 8 members from the public that sit on the Prince Albert Public Library Board in addition to the mayor.
Which brings to
So
9.
that makes it 7 to 9. It also indicates that one of those members, the 6 to 8, can be another council member, but there can only be one additional council member. So right now, we have the mayor and Councillor Zurkowski. We have 2 members of council sitting on there. So you, at this very moment, with 7 members being appointed by city council, that there is, which includes the mayor, there are 5 members of the public
Thank you.
appointed.
Thank you for that clarification. So currently, there is room to appoint 1 additional member of the public to this board.
If council
Thank
so
you.
wishes to
And that's my
amend
ask.
the motion
Right.
or to have the membership be additional members.
And that's my ask of council, is to, and then this body doesn't make that decision, but city council does, is because there is room on that board, that we push this to the next city council meeting and ask that we have this, ask city council to appoint this member back to the library board. There is room on that board currently.
Thank you, Councillor Zurkowski. Councillor Head and then Mayor Dion.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Just a question, I guess, because you're asking to reappoint her, so she was already on the board, and so her term ended, and then how long would that new term, if we're going to appoint her, would it be a 2-year term, would it be a 1-year term, 2-year term? So that's the question I had, I guess, the length of the term, and then is there other people in the wings? And then I guess, did her position end from, like, why we're asking to put her on there?
Thank you. City Clerk?
So she was appointed to a 2-year term that ended December 31st, 2021, and they are 2-year terms.
And you could only serve 2 terms, correct?
I think it's 3.
3 terms,
I
okay.
think it's 3 consecutive, because I think it's 6 years.
Thank you.
I remember. I don't know. I'd have to look at the act.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Dion.
Well, and that's why I want to refer it back to the clerk, because we don't have all the facts straight, and we don't have the policy. But I think the first thing that has to happen is we have to get a request from the library to move it back to 9. It was their request. I was part of the process. It was their request to move it from 9 to 7. That was with their ex-chair, Brent Bereshchuk. We took it down from, so our policy says 7. So we have to change our policy. And I think that has to come from the library board, but it can't come from council if we want to overstep the library. I don't see that. I don't know if they would object. But I think this process can happen very quickly. So I don't know why, it's urgent, it's on the books today. And I think council can deal with it quickly because it sounds like we're all in favor of it. But we do have a process to follow. And so I would just ask that we follow the process. The board did ask us to reduce it from 9 to 7, which we did. So I think the board should ask us to go back and agree to go to 9, just not appoint Tracy, go to 9. Or maybe they want to go to 8, but I don't know. My recommendation at the board, I sit on it, will be 9. So then when we reappoint the 9th person, we can make the board more representative of our community, more diverse. So I think it's a win-win here. And so I think this process can happen quickly, and I don't think it's unreasonable to ask times, because some of the questions that were asked today is iffy or maybe, or it says this or it says that. But I'd like to, first of all, pull up the motion, have the clerk give the clerk the opportunity to pull up the motion to show us that we did reduce it at the request of the library from 9 to 7. So all I am asking is that we follow process. I'm not asking that we don't appoint her. I have found the solution, and the solution is go back to 9, and then the problem solved.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. And yeah, if we made just a motion that we follow what the Libraries Act says, which is the 6 to 8, then at our next council meeting, have another appointed person. But Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, thank you. Whichever the process may be, I certainly would support Ms. Smith getting reappointed to the board. From everything I hear, she was very passionate about our library, and that's sometimes difficult to find someone that's willing to be on a board and who is in it for the right reasons. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zurkowski.
Sure, and I'm okay with that. I don't want to be overly cumbersome on this issue for sure. But I want to make sure I understand what I'm hearing. So again, the last library board, there's a very robust discussion. At the end of that discussion, a motion was made, and it's in the correspondence here, asking that Tracy Smith be appointed to the library board. So now we're saying, thank you for the correspondence, but library board members, could you please ask us to increase the number? But that's the motion. It just seems increase the numerical value of the board up to 1. I think that's sort of implicit in the ask to add this 1 member. That's implicit in this ask to appoint Tracy Smith, and it fits within the Libraries Act, that range of board members that are allowed. I don't see, I've never seen anything that we need to go back to the library board and have them make that request. They've already made the request. They've already made the request is here. And we have some time before a city council meeting. If we need additional information, that can certainly come to us from the city clerk's office. If we're looking for some clarity on that, I've done my homework, the board's done their homework on this, and the request was made. This certainly, to write a correspondence from the library board to this body, it wasn't taken lightly. I don't think I've ever seen that before, and that ask was a serious ask, and they're asking this body to take that seriously.
Thank you, Councillor Zurkowski. Any other discussion? Councillor Lennox up?
No, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion before us. That Tracy Smith be appointed to the Prince Albert Public Library Board. Or Mayor Dion. Mayor Dion.
Yes, council does make that decision. A request from the library board to reduce it from 9 to 7. Council put up their hand, we agree. Now they want to put Tracy back on the board. I have no issue with that. All I'm asking them is to have a meeting, put their hands up again, to ask council to go from 7 to 9. We have boards and we have policy for a reason. We follow policy. And the policy, we're full. But the policy, the remedy is to have the library board rescind their earlier request to reduce it from 9 to 7. And I don't think that's a big request. I don't know what the emergency is that we have to appoint her today or tomorrow or in a week. As long as they know she's going to go back on. And the motion was asking us to reconsider. Because I sit on that board and I explained to them that they don't have appointment authority, that they cannot appoint boards. So I don't think I'm being unreasonable. I support your theory of reappointing her, but there is a process. We have 7, the board is full. All I'm asking is that the library board, and I don't think it's a big request, that the library board rescind their further request to go from 7 back to 9, and then the city clerk and the mayor will reappoint 2 people to the board, and one will be Tracy Smith. So I'm asking to follow process.
Thank you. Councillor Cody.
Yeah, I agree with the mayor here. After all, if there is no room on the board, I don't know how this council puts somebody on, in spite of the fact that Councillor Zurakowski says it appears to be implicit in the fact that once they made that decision to appoint her, that they're making room for her. But I think they asked for a reduction from 9 to 7. They must have had a reason for that. I don't know what the reason was, but they must have had a reason, and they've got to change that reason to 9 now. And if they do, I'm perfectly happy with Tracy Smith. I can tell you that. I know her very, very well, and she's excellent. But I think the mayor's right. There is no room right now. Get the board to say, we want to go from 7 to 9. Let's get the clerk to get it out there and see if she wants to apply. If she applies, I'm perfectly happy to have her. But I think there is a process you need to go through. Whether you think, Councillor Zurakowski, or not, that it's implicit because you said to put her on, that makes it implicit. I don't think it really does. I think you have to go to the channels that are proper and actually go from 7 to 9.
Thank you. Councillor Zurakowski.
Sure. I just want to make sure that I understand what I'm hearing then. So what I'm hearing is we went to hear a request from the board, a request to increase the number of board members to 9. That's what we're asking. And once that happens, then we're supportive of this reappointment. Just we want to make sure there's room. Yep. Thank you.
So are you going to change your motion, or? Mayor Dion.
That I would keep the motion, I'd make number 2, Tracy, number 1, that we request that the Prince Albert Library Board increase their membership from 7 to 9. Make that number 1, and then number 2, appoint Tracy.
Okay.
So once that's done, we don't have to stress the process anymore. Then I'll just bring Tracy's name and another person's names back to be appointed to the library board.
Okay, so Can Councilor Lennox Epp see this or not? She can, okay. Okay, so is everybody clear on the motion? Okay, Councilor Zurkowski, you're okay with that? Okay, let's vote. That's 6-6. Okay, the vote is open. All those, oh, sorry, Councilor Lennox Epp?
Yes.
Thank you. Vote is closed, and it carries unanimously 9-0. Okay, so now we have 6.7, request for snow removal, 6th Avenue East and River Street, and that was Councilor Lennox Epp.
Yes, I have a question for administration.
Okay.
I think it would be the Director of Community Services, or maybe it's Public Works, actually. But I just wanted to confirm, the letter states that that she thanks the city for clearing that area of sidewalk that's near the Rotary Trail. So can I just understand a little bit better? Is that an area that we as a city do clear?
Who's taking that? Community Services, Director Jody Boulay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Councillor Lennox Zepp's inquiry, so this stretch is it's actually a portion where we consider it a portion of the Rotary Trail because of the steep riverbank and the slope that exists there. When they put the trail in, of course, you couldn't put it along the riverbank. So that is a connector or a form of a connector until you can rejoin the actual Rotary Trail further east. We will, with the snow that we've been plowing in the area, we'll have to work in a couple instances where we have larger ridges that are built up along the road when the road clearing has been done. We'll have to work in conjunction with the roadways manager to get some of that done, just some access to equipment. But this type of stretch should be completed with the Rotary Trail so that that access and that connection point is safe to use for everyone.
Okay, and I was just going to ask.
Thank you, Jody. Go ahead, Councillor Lennox Epp.
Oh, thank you. Just to follow up on that question, so is it possible to do the clearing of that sidewalk section, as frequently as we do, and we do such a great job, and the letter writer mentions it, such a great job of the Rotary Trail. Is it possible to do clearing of that sidewalk section, maybe more frequently or more so when we're doing the Rotary Trail there?
Director?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Councillor Lennox Epp's inquiry, I think the answer here is the timing. So yes, when we get smaller snow accumulation, it's easy to clear. When we clear the trail, you simply brush it off and move on. What we have to time better, I believe, in that stretch is when the road is being plowed, we then have to follow that work and not allow that ridge and that buildup of the snow, because it's very necessary to clear the road, obviously. But when it builds up and there's no other way to push it, it does start to encroach onto that stretch. So the timing needs to be done, I think, a little better. When that work's done, it's necessary work, then we have to follow in and clear it so that that trail is clear. Or that sidewalk, I should say, that portion of sidewalk.
Okay, and do you see anything that we at City Council need to do or consider to try to make improvement there?
No, I think having it on the agenda today, we've already spoken about it as a department. The timing was the big subject that we spoke about as early as this morning. And if we can improve that, I think then we'll have the solution.
Perfect, and I'm hearing you right that you think that it is possible to improve that timing then?
I believe so, and I think then that way you have a proper connection.
Perfect, I appreciate that. I will move the recommended motion there.
Thank you, Councillor Lennox Epp. Thank you, Jody. I think too, with this, communication is key because we're cleaning a sidewalk. It's not a sidewalk, it's a connector of it's part of the Rotary Trail, and that's what the public needs to hear, because the minute we clean that area. We're gonna have areas all around the city. Why are you cleaning that sidewalk and not our sidewalk? And so we need to be very clear that this is part of the Rotary Trail, and that's why it's being cleared as part of the Rotary Trail. And that's key. Number two, I don't think we've had a small snow event. We don't have those anymore. And so I think, you know, we're gonna have to, or the two departments, as you said, will work together to get this done. So that's great to hear. Any other discussion or comments on this? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. I gotta find it. Snow removal, ready to vote. Okay, the vote is open. Councillor Lennox Zepp?
Yes.
Thank you. Everybody's in. Accept. It passes 9-0, unanimous decision again. Thank you. Okay, reports of administration and committees, 7.1, verbal presentation from our city clerk on action items from City Council, Executive Committee, and Budget Committee meetings.
Okay, so the open action items are in everybody's agenda. I'm not sure if members of the executive committee want me to go one by one through them to ask you if you have any concerns, or if you just want to note the ones that you want to discuss.
What is our wishes, council?
Okay. So if you have any questions, you can ask.
Okay. Councillor Zurikowski has a question. Oh, he doesn't. He does.
Sorry, I didn't want to go first.
Councillor Zurikowski, go
Okay, I didn't
first.
want to go first, sorry. I didn't want to go first because I don't have a question on any of these listed, but although it was very helpful to see the updates and that, so thank you for that. I do have a question that I thought was an action item, so maybe somebody can help me out. Maybe it was just a conversation that went on. And it was a conversation that centered around the development of 2 or 3 acre lots. And my recollection is that there was a report coming forward, or maybe it was just a discussion, or maybe it's part of a bigger item someplace, or if it was parked. Yeah, I don't recall that, so.
I think it was just discussed, or somebody asked that, and
Yeah.
I don't think there was a formal motion. I think that was at Budget
Yeah.
Committee.
So if I could just ask administration then if it's on somebody's list or not on the list, just so I know where to pick up that conversation. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor, or, okay, now I gotta move Craig ahead. Shift, we'll look at that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I believe the discussion came up during our annexation discussions, ongoing annexation discussions with the future of the land that we've acquired east of Prince Albert. I think the Deputy Mayor is correct. I don't think there's been any formal motion on the books. However, there are ongoing annexation discussions and certainly more opportunity to flag that as a potential discussion point. But happy to take any further direction from council.
Okay, no, that's good. That tells me where it's sitting, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Head.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I do have one comment, I guess, to make on this action item. I realize that it's 90 days, and we increased it from 60 to 90. But then I look at the action item listing, Councillor Lennox Zepp's implementation of Truth and Reconciliation. I believe it was made at the same time I made the motion back in July of 2021. So the date is wrong, suggesting it was done in November. That wasn't the case. It was done in July. And I was asked to remove those motions because we were going to get a report back, and I still haven't seen them. And so if we're waiting until the end of February now, that's well past the 90 days.
Yeah, Councillor Lennox's motion was actually made at the August 16th, 2021 City Council meeting. And then the due date would be 90 days from that, which was November 16th. And now the City Manager's Office is just asking for a change to that to February 28th, which is within that first quarter of 2022.
Thank you. Mayor Dion.
No, just to touch back on to Councilor Zurikowski's thing, I am at the next council meeting bringing a notice of motion to develop acre lots, and I actually have 3 locations. One is east, of course, but one is also a waste of land that is serviced, the North Park Center. That is service land. It has water and sewer. And it's fenced, so it would be a great opportunity to sell that as even a gated community for acreages, and another location. So it's my intention to confirm this week with, to make sure that we own all the land that I'm putting forward with the Director of Planning, and I'm actually going to make it a motion so it happens.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote.
No, we need a motion.
Oh, we need a motion. Okay, Councillor Edwards.
I'll move the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Now we go to the vote. I gotta find 7-1. Okay, it won't go up anymore.
No, because it's before those.
Oh, that's right.
Sorry.
That's okay. Right there. Okay, the vote is open. Councillor Lennox Zepp?
No.
Okay, so the motion, I'll close close, accept. It's 8-1. Thank you. Any unfinished business? None? One more motion to adjourn. Councillor Kilmer?
Move to adjourn?
Okay. And we have to do a vote, right? Where is that? Okay. It's open. Councillor Lennox Zepp?
Yes.
I need one more vote. That was me. Close, accept, passes 9-0. Meeting is adjourned. We'll adjourn till about 5:45, I guess, eh? Okay.
Well done, Mr.